So instead of showing a number of timesheets, I just ran a quick report, and we entered some timesheet data. We just ran a quick report in DTC to show you here's the hours by the different, at the lowest level of the work breakdown structure for that particular project. And we've got the hours in DTC by day, as you might expect. And we can then export these hours or integrate them essentially with Primavera schedule to give you actual hours consumed. Again, just to kind of talk about a few of the different approaches that we might take is that you may want incremental updates. So let's, at the end of every day, bring the hours over from DTC to Primavera. Or you may want inception to date, so every night you're just going from the beginning of the job to the current date and bringing all the hours into Primavera and overriding what you've got in there. It's a typical approach we see when the two WBSs are in sync, so when Primavera is updating DTC on a regular basis from a work breakdown structure perspective, then we may do the inception to date export of hours just so that if any of those changes are synchronized and we don't get the Primavera outdated hours in their system. As the schedule changes, it will be reflected in both systems. And in DTC, again, we've got mechanisms in place to if you're changing a description in the work breakdown structure, if you're canceling a phase of the job or reallocating hours, we can take care of that quite handily in DTC. The export engine's smart enough to know that, okay, these hours have been reallocated, so we need to resubmit them through the Primavera export process to update the schedule with those changes. So again, it would be completely automated, and nobody would be required to be running reports and verifying that the hours in Primavera match the hours in DTC. Again, you can run those reports and we can verify that they're the same, but there's no effort involved in synchronizing them once the integration is built. So this is a quick look at the export engine. So last screenshot was the hours once at the end of the day or once they're approved. We're going to take those hours, export them through the export process, and send them over to Primavera. Like the import process, you can have as many different export processes as you need. I think I missed that point when we were talking about importing data, but we had a question earlier about our suggestion that integrating the two systems is easy, and the question was essentially, is it easy if the work breakdown structure and the cost codes are standard across the entire organization? And from our perspective, it doesn't really matter. You can have as many different import and export processes as you need. So if you're a large organization and you have a civil construction division and an industrial construction division, and you have got standard cost codes for civil, but you don't have standard cost codes for industrial, we would just tailor each export process to fit that particular business unit's requirements, and be overriding cost codes on the industrial side, but sticking with the standard cost codes on the civil side. We can even get to a very granular level where we're building unique exports by project or by region, whatever you require. And again, because Primavera has 90% of what we need and DTC has 90% of what we need pre-built, building the integration piece isn't a lot of work, and then modifying it to meet unique business requirements within one organization is very incremental cost for us to do. So again, on the import process, on the export process, you might have 10 different Primavera export processes depending on the business rules for your division or for that job. And a lot of that's going to be dictated by what the owner would like to see at the end of the day. Again, you may, small jobs, maybe you want hours to come over daily. Larger jobs, maybe you just want them to come over weekly. Those can all be defined by the the integration processes we put in place. And again, probably beating a dead horse here, but they can be different by project or division. So how to import from a Primavera perspective the hours back into the schedule. This is just a look at how the flat file process works. It's a little difficult for us to show you. The API is just a bunch of code, and so we opted for the flat file process just so you could get a feel for Primavera having the tools to query a particular file and bring in hours based on that work breakdown structure. The next screenshot is is a look at that same Primavera schedule, but now with the actual hours loaded in the schedule. So the hours are loaded into Primavera and available to review. Again, I mentioned it several times earlier. Primavera will have a set of business rules or business logic. So if there's any inconsistencies between DTC and Primavera, they'll be identified and potentially rejected during the import process. You'll need to fix them and re-import them to make sure that we're meeting Primavera's requirements. We can bring in the hours on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Whatever business requirements you want us to follow, we can accommodate. Recognizing that you want to do the type S-curve type reporting, resource loading type analysis in Primavera, we typically see most companies want to see that information posted to Primavera on a daily basis. So again, once the actual hours in there, we have the much needed feedback that we need to re-estimate the job in Primavera or to prepare the forecast to complete type information. So we have a question here, and maybe we'll just quickly look at it. It says, how robust is the engine? We have a huge number of projects in progress at any time and must also consider turnaround activities, which is much more highly concentrated. Is a day-to-day real-time reporting potential update, is it practical, is it possible? And one of the things I forgot to mention at the beginning of the presentation is I already touched on the fact that we're an Oracle partner. We have access to their technical documentation. At the end of the webinar, we're going to post it on our website, and we will also post some of the technical documentation around integrating with Primavera and DTC so that you guys can get maybe a more detailed look at that. This is an excellent question. I'm glad that you asked this, and it's definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. So as you saw in the import process screenshot, we can be running any process at any interval we want. So it can be running every 30 seconds, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, but absolutely the more frequently that you run it, the more process intensive it's going to be. And if you have a huge number of jobs, it's going to be a big constraint on your hardware to be running it in 5-minute intervals. So the short answer to your question is that it's absolutely doable. The size and scale and the number of projects and the amount of data is really not the issue. It's more of a resource issue. How much processors, how many processors, how much computer power do you have available to you at any given time? And that's typically why we'll schedule these types of processes to run at 2 a.m. in the morning, because nobody's going to be on the system. Hopefully not too many people will be on the system anyways. And we'll have maximum number of resources. We can run it when you're off peak hours and get that data into DTC and Primavera. With that said, again, there are definitely hardware constraints that we can address with you, before you go to the trouble and expense of building a fully integrated solution. So another quick question here: can sub-projects scope changes be integrated easily and tracked separately without complete reinstallation of the revised work scope and WBS, so to speak? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but definitely any updates and changes that you are making in your Primavera schedule can be reflected in DTC. I'm not a power user on the Primavera side, but within DTC we have the ability to tag the different nodes within the work breakdown structure to say that this is a change request or a revision, or that it's pending approval, so that we can accommodate the fact that you've got your original scope, it's approved, you're moving on that, you're coding time to it, but other aspects of the job may be at different stages of that approval process. So maybe we'll come back to that one at the end here, just to make sure that we fully answer that question. So the why integrate slide, again, just to reiterate, it's been our experience that actual results are incorporated into to re-estimate or reforecast the job. The level of accuracy and confidence significantly increases, and the information becomes trustworthy, and timely decisions can be made with confidence, and the success factors go up significantly. So I mean, it's a fairly straightforward principle, but if we have real-time data, or relatively real-time data, and we're confident in its accuracy, then we can start to make decisions about what the data is telling us, rather than discussing whether or not the data is accurate. So again, stop questioning the accuracy of the data and start making the right decisions.